The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons and served as the meeting place for the 7 most powerful alien races in the galaxy. Today, something important was happening. The Galactic Council had called an emergency meeting, and everyone knew why. Humanity was in trouble. Ambassador Park Hyun stood at the window of his small quarters, looking out at the strange ships that surrounded the station. Each one belonged to a different alien race. The Vorthax ships looked like giant metal spiders with too many legs. The Zilani vessels were smooth and white, shaped like teardrops. Other ships had designs that hurt to look at too long. They all had one thing in common, though. They were much bigger than the single human ship that had brought Park Hyun here. Soft knock came at his door. "Come in," Park Hyun said. Captain Lee Dong entered the room. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. Behind him came Dr. Kim Soo, a woman in her 40s who carried herself like someone who had seen too much of the universe. These were the only other humans on the entire station. "The council is ready for us," Lee Dong said. His voice was calm, but Park Hyun could hear the tension underneath. "They want to start in 10 minutes. Dr. Kim Soo moved to stand beside Park Hyun at the window. "I counted the ships again. There are over 300 alien vessels out there, all of them armed. And we brought one small diplomatic ship with no weapons," Park Hyun said quietly. "They want to make sure we understand our place." Lee Dong checked his uniform one last time. "Do we know what they plan to charge us with?" "The message was clear enough," Park Hyun replied. "Unauthorized expansion, refusal to follow galactic law, dangerous technology development, the usual complaints they make when a young race gets too big for their liking." Dr. Kim Soo turned away from the window. "The charges are fake, of course. We followed every rule they gave us. We only settled in empty systems. We never attacked anyone. We even shared our medical technology freely." "None of that matters now," Park Hyun said. "This isn't about rules. This is about power. The Council has ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They don't like it when new races start to grow strong." The 3 humans walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime toward the Council chambers. The station was built by aliens for aliens, so everything felt wrong to human eyes. The hallways were too wide and too tall. The lights were the wrong color. Strange smells filled the air. Worst of all were the other beings they passed. A group of Kethra glided by, their crystal bodies chiming softly as they moved. Their faces had no expressions that humans could read. 2 Vorthax soldiers stood guard at an intersection, their forearms holding weapons that looked like they could cut through a battleship. One of them clicked something that might have been laughter when it saw the humans pass. "They think we're a joke," Lee Dong muttered. "Let them," Park Hyun said. "It's better when your enemies don't take you seriously." They reached the great doors of the council chamber. The doors were made of some black metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols were carved into the surface, the marks of the 7 council races. As the doors opened, a wave of sound washed over them. The council chamber was enormous. It could have held 10,000 people, but today it held only the most important beings in the galaxy. 7 raised platforms formed a circle in the center of the room. On each platform sat the representatives of the council races. Around them, in smaller seats, sat hundreds of observers from dozens of other alien races. Park Hyun led his small group to the center of the circle. A single chair waited for him, human-sized but clearly made in a hurry. The message was obvious. Humans were not really welcome here. Counselor Thexvar of the Vorthak race spoke first. He was twice as tall as a human and had skin like black leather. When he spoke, his voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "The emergency session of the Galactic Council will now begin," Thexvar announced. "We are here to address the crimes of the species known as humanity." The word crimes echoed through the chamber. Park Hyun noticed that many of the aliens in the observer seats were leaning forward, eager to see what would happen next. High Chancellor Morden of the Kethra rose from his platform. His crystal body caught the light and threw rainbows across the chamber walls. "The charges are as follows," he said in a voice like singing bells. "First, unauthorized expansion into sectors claimed by Council authority. Second, refusal to submit to proper galactic oversight. Third, development of potentially dangerous technologies without Council approval." Counselor Nalthis of the Zilani spread her wing membranes as she spoke. "These are serious charges. The last race that ignored Council authority was the Kitheric civilization. They chose to resist us 200 years ago. Today their homeworld is a monument to the folly of defying the Council." Murmurs of agreement came from around the chamber. Some aliens made sounds that might have been applause. Others simply stared at the three humans with eyes that held no warmth. Park Hyun looked around the circle of council members. Most of them wore expressions of boredom or mild amusement. Only one seemed different. Counselor Wei Pan of the Astari sat quietly on her platform, her large compound eyes watching everything. The Astari were known for their careful study of other races. Park Hyun wondered what she saw when she looked at humans. "The accused will now present their defense," Thexvar said. There was something in his tone that suggested he found the whole idea of a human defense amusing. Park Hyun stood up. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the life support systems. Hundreds of alien eyes focused on him. He felt the weight of their attention like a physical thing. "Honored counselors," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "Humanity requests permission to present evidence that will address these charges." Counselor Nalthis made a sound that might have been laughter. "Evidence? What evidence could a race barely 3 centuries old possibly have that would interest this council?" "The evidence of our actions," Park Hyun replied calmly. "The evidence of our intentions. The evidence of our peaceful expansion into systems that had been empty for thousands of years." "Peaceful?" Thexvar's voice boomed through the chamber. "Your own history shows that humans are incapable of peace. You wage war constantly among yourselves. Your planet's surface is scarred by the conflicts of your species." "And yet," Park Hyun said, "in 300 years of space travel, humanity has never attacked another intelligent race. We have never claimed a world that belonged to others. We have never refused aid to those who asked for help." The chamber filled with alien sounds that Park Hyun was beginning to recognize as mockery. Clicks, hums, and whistles that said the same thing in a dozen different languages. These humans are naive children who don't understand how the galaxy really works. Dr. Kim Soo stepped forward. "If the Council will permit, I would like to present the specific evidence that supports Ambassador Park's statements." "Oh, by all means," Counselor Thexvar said, settling back on his platform. "Let us hear what the human child race has to say for itself." The mockery was no longer subtle. It filled the air like a physical presence. Park Hyun could see that Captain Lee Dong's hands had formed fists at his sides, but the soldier's face remained calm. Dr. Kim Soo showed no reaction at all to the alien laughter. She simply activated her datapad and began to speak. Dr. Kim Soo activated her datapad, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the council chamber. The display showed a star map with dozens of systems marked in different colors. These are the systems where humanity has established colonies, she began, her voice clear and professional. As you can see, every single one was uninhabited when we arrived. We used council databases to verify this before we sent even a single survey ship. The hologram changed to show detailed scans of empty worlds. Barren planets with no signs of life. Gas giants with no stations. Asteroid fields with no mining operations. Dr. Kim Soo pointed to each one as she spoke. System 447 Alpha was abandoned by the Trilaxian Empire over 800 years ago. System 892 Gamma shows no signs of habitation for over 1,000 years. The Kepler cluster was surveyed by 3 different council races and deemed worthless due to its unstable star. Counselor Nalthis interrupted with a sound like breaking glass. Worthless to us does not mean free for you to take, little human. The galaxy belongs to the council races. We decide who may expand and where. But the Galactic Charter signed 400 years ago clearly states that any race may settle uninhabited systems after proper survey and registration. Dr. Kim Soo replied. Humanity followed these procedures exactly. High Chancellor Morden's crystal form chimed softly. The charter was written when the galaxy was larger and emptier. Times change. Rules change. What was permitted then may not be permitted now. The alien observers around the chamber made sounds of agreement. Park Hyun noticed that many of them seemed to be enjoying this. They liked watching a younger race struggle against the established order. Dr. Kim Soo changed the holographic display again. Now it showed human colonies in detail, cities built in harmony with alien landscapes, farms that improved soil rather than depleted it, factories that cleaned the air instead of polluting it. Our colonies have actually improved every world we've settled, she continued. We've restored dead oceans on 3 planets. We've replanted forests on worlds strip-mined by previous inhabitants. We've even shared this restoration technology freely with any race that asked for it. How generous, Counselor Thexavar said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You clean up the garbage worlds we left behind and expect gratitude. Tell me, human, what about your military expansion? What about the warships you build in every system? Captain Li Dong stepped forward. Our ships are for defense only. We build them because the galaxy has pirates and raiders. We've used our fleet to protect trade routes, not attack them. We've rescued alien crews from disasters. We've never fired on another nation's ships unless they fired first. The laughter that filled the chamber was louder now. Aliens clicked, hummed, and whistled their amusement. Some pounded their various appendages on their seats. Defensive ships? Counselor Nalthis spread her wings wide. Your battleships carry enough firepower to crack moons. Your fighters move faster than anything in our fleets. You call this defensive? We call it prepared. Li Dong replied calmly. History has taught humanity that peace is only possible when you're strong enough to defend it. History! Thexvar's voice boomed through the chamber. Let us talk about your history, Captain. Your species has been at war for its entire existence. You fight over land, resources, ideas, even skin, color. You build weapons capable of destroying your own planet, and you expect us to believe you're peaceful? The mockery reached a new level. Some aliens were making sounds that could only be laughter. Others swayed in their seats as if they found the whole thing entertaining beyond words. Dr. Kim Soo tried to continue her presentation. If we could return to the technology charges, I have documentation showing that all human research follows strict ethical guidelines. Ethical guidelines. Counselor Mordoon's chiming voice cut her off. You speak of ethics while developing quantum tunneling drives that could destabilize space itself. You experiment with gravity manipulation that could collapse star systems. You call this ethical? We call it careful, Dr. Kim Soo replied. Every technology we develop is tested extensively. We share our safety data with the Council. We've never had a serious accident. Yet, Nalthis said ominously. You've never had a serious accident yet. But your quantum experiments create ripples we can detect from here. Your gravity research makes our sensors scream warnings. You play with forces you barely understand. The alien audience was loving this. Park Hyun could see beings from dozens of races leaning forward in their seats, watching the humans struggle to defend themselves. Some were recording the proceedings, probably to share with their home governments later. Perhaps, Thexvar said, with obvious pleasure, we should explain to these humans exactly how advanced civilization works in this galaxy. He activated his own display system. The hologram that appeared showed the galaxy from above, with different colored areas marking the territories of the Council races. This is the galaxy as it really exists, Thexvar announced. 7 great powers divide up all the important systems. We maintain order. We prevent wars. We ensure that dangerous technologies are controlled by those wise enough to use them properly. The AO display zoomed in to show human space, a tiny cluster of systems on the outer edge of the galaxy. And here is humanity, Thexvar continued, a young race that appeared barely 3 centuries ago. You learned to travel between stars using technology you stole from crashed alien ships. You expanded into the leftover systems that we didn't want, and now you think this makes you our equals. The laughter was becoming cruel now. Aliens made sounds that clearly meant they thought humans were stupid, naive, or both. Counselor Wei Pan of the Asthari had remained silent through all of this. Her compound eyes reflected the holographic light as she watched the proceedings. Park Hyun noticed that she wasn't laughing with the others. Dr. Kim Soo made one more attempt. Our research into quantum mechanics and gravity manipulation has led to medical breakthroughs that have saved millions of lives. We've shared these discoveries freely. Our cancer treatments, our organ regeneration techniques, primitive healing arts, Nalthis dismissed. We mastered biological repair technology before your species learned to make fire. Your medicines are toys compared to what real science can achieve. Your weapons, however, Mordun added, those concern us greatly. Nuclear fusion bombs, antimatter, warheads, gravitational pulse cannons. For such a young race, you show remarkable talent for destruction. Every race develops weapons, Captain Li Dong said. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Not every race develops them so enthusiastically, Thexvar replied. Not every race builds weapons that could threaten Council ships. Not every race refuses to limit their military growth when asked politely to do so. The chamber fell silent for a moment. The word politely hung in the air like a threat. Park Hyun realized they had reached the heart of the matter. The Council sent diplomatic requests for humanity to limit its expansion and military development, Mordun explained to the audience. These requests were declined. We explained our position clearly, Park Hyun said. Humanity cannot accept limits on our growth that don't apply equally to all races. We cannot accept oversight that gives other species veto power over our development. The silence that followed was deafening. Then the laughter started again, louder and more mocking than before. "Cannot accept?" Thexvar's voice rose above the alien sounds. "Little humans, you seem to misunderstand your position. You don't get to choose what you accept. You get to choose how you comply." Nalthis leaned forward on her platform. "The Council has been patient with your species. We allowed your expansion because your systems were worthless to us. We tolerated your military, build up because your weapons seemed primitive. We ignored your refusal to accept oversight because we thought you would learn wisdom with time. But patience has limits," Mordun added. "Tolerance has boundaries. Even wisdom must sometimes be enforced." The alien audience had gone quiet now. They sensed that something important was about to happen. Park Hyun felt the weight of their attention like a physical pressure. "The time for gentle guidance has ended," Thexvar announced. "The time for firm correction has begun." High Chancellor Morden rose from his crystal platform. His body caught the chamber's light and threw dancing rainbows across the walls. When he spoke, his voice rang like bells, but there was no music in it now. "The Galactic Council has reached its decision regarding humanity," he announced. "After careful consideration of the evidence presented, we find the charges proven beyond doubt." The chamber fell completely silent. Even the soft humming of the life support system seemed to quiet down. Hundreds of alien eyes focused on the three humans standing in the center of the circle. "The sentence is as follows," Mordun continued. "Humanity will comply with the following terms within 1 galactic standard year." Thexvar stood up next, his massive form towering over his platform. "First, all human colonies beyond the Sol system will be evacuated immediately. Your people will return to Earth and the inner planets only." A murmur of satisfaction ran through the alien observers. Some made clicking sounds that Park Hyun was beginning to recognize as approval. "Second," Nalthis added, spreading her wing membranes. "Wide, all human military vessels larger than system patrol craft will be surrendered to Council forces for disposal." "Third," Morden's chiming voice continued, "all human research into quantum mechanics, gravity manipulation, and advanced energy systems will cease. Existing research data will be turned over to Council scientists for proper evaluation." Thexvar's voice boomed through the chamber. "Fourth, humanity will pay reparations for the illegal occupation of Council space. These reparations will consist of raw materials, manufactured goods, and labor services as determined by the Council." The alien audience was getting excited now. Some of them started making noises that sounded like cheering. Others swayed in their seats or flapped appendages that might have been hands. "And finally," Nalthis said with obvious pleasure, "to ensure full compliance with these terms, the Council will establish monitoring stations throughout the Sol system. Council observers will oversee all human activities to prevent future violations of galactic law." The chamber erupted in alien sounds of approval. Clicks, hums, whistles, and stranger noises filled the air. The observers seemed genuinely happy about this outcome. Park Hyun realized that many of them had probably faced similar ultimatums from the Council in the past. Counselor Wei Pan of the Astari had still not made a sound. Her compound eyes reflected the light as she watched the celebration around her. Park Hyun wondered what she was thinking. Thexvar raised one of his 4 arms for silence. The chamber gradually quieted down. "These terms are non-negotiable," he announced. "They represent the mercy of the Council toward a young race that has simply grown too quickly for its own good." Many Council members argued for harsher measures. Indeed, Morden agreed. Some suggested that humanity should be reduced to a single planet with no space travel at all. Others recommended the complete destruction of your military and industrial capacity. Nalthis folded her wings against her body. But the Council chose the path of wisdom. We offer you the chance to learn your place in the galactic order through guidance rather than force. Park Hyun looked at his companions. Dr. Kim. Sue's face showed no emotion at all. She might have been listening to a weather report. Captain Lee Dong had gone very still in the way that soldiers do when they're controlling strong emotions. You spoke of force, Park Hyun said quietly. What happens if humanity chooses not to accept these terms? The laughter that followed was the cruelest yet. It started with Thexavar's metal-scraping voice and spread through the chamber like a wave. Some aliens pounded their seats. Others made sounds that could only be described as gleeful. "Oh, little human," Nalthis said when the laughter died down. "Do you really need to ask?" A new holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a dead star system with shattered planets orbiting a dying sun. The image was beautiful in a horrible way, like jewelry made from broken glass. This was the Kitheric home system, Morden explained. The Kitheric were much like humans in some ways. They achieved space travel quickly. They expanded rapidly. They developed impressive technology for such a young race. The image zoomed in to show the ruins of cities floating in space. Pieces of what had once been a thriving civilization drifted between the broken worlds. And like humans, Thexavar added, they refused to accept the guidance of their betters. They chose to resist when the Council offered them the same mercy we offer. You today. The war lasted only 6 months, Nalthis said. The Kitheric fought bravely, but courage cannot overcome the combined might of 7 Council races. Their fleets were destroyed. Their worlds were cracked open. Their people... She didn't need to finish. The hologram said everything. Today, the Kitheric system serves as a memorial, Morden concluded. It reminds the galaxy what happens when young races refuse to learn wisdom. The chamber was quiet now, except for soft alien sounds that might have been mourning. But Park Hyun suspected they were not mourning for the Kitheric. They were anticipating what might happen to humanity. So, Thexavar said, settling back on his platform, I ask again, do you really need to know what happens if humanity refuses our generous terms? Park Hyun stood silent for a long moment. The weight of hundreds of alien gazes pressed down on him. He could feel the expectations in the air. They all expected him to beg, to plead for mercy, to accept the Council's terms gratefully. Instead, he reached into his diplomatic case and pulled out a single data pad. The motion was so simple and unexpected that the entire chamber focused on it. What was the human doing? Was he about to surrender? Formally? Present some final desperate plea? Park Hyun walked to the speaker's podium in the center of the circle. His footsteps echoed strangely in the vast chamber. He placed the data pad carefully on the podium's surface. What is this? Thexavar demanded. Some final desperate offering? Some pathetic attempt to buy more time? Park Hyun looked around the circle of council members. His gaze stopped for a moment on Councillor Weipan, who was watching him with unreadable compound eyes. Historical records, Park Hyun said simply, so that the galaxy will remember what choice was made here today. He turned away from the podium and began walking toward the chamber doors. Dr. Kim Soo and Captain Lee Dong fell into step beside him. They didn't hurry. They didn't run. They simply walked at a normal, dignified pace. Wait, Nalthis called out. You haven't given us your answer. Do you accept the council's terms or not? Park Hyun paused at the chamber doors without turning around. We choose a third option, he said quietly. There is no third option, Thexvar's voice boomed across the chamber. There is always a third option, Park Hyun replied. History teaches us that much. The doors began to open. The three humans stepped toward the exit. Guards! Mordun's voice chimed urgently. Stop them! They cannot leave without giving a formal response. But the guards at the doors were confused. The humans weren't running or fighting. They weren't breaking any laws by simply walking out. The guards looked to their superiors for orders that didn't come fast enough. What are these historical records? Nalthis demanded. What games are you playing, humans? Park Hyun paused in the doorway. For the first time since entering the chamber, he turned to look back at the assembled aliens. No games, he said. Just truth. The galaxy should know what happened here. It should know what choice the Council made when offered the chance for peaceful coexistence. We offered you peace, Thexvar roared. We offered you a place in the Galactic Order. You offered us slavery, Captain Li Dong said quietly. There's a difference. The chamber doors sealed shut behind the humans with a soft hiss. The sound seemed very loud in the sudden silence. For a long moment, no one moved. The aliens stared at the closed doors as if they couldn't believe what had just happened. No species had ever simply walked out of a council ultimatum before. Finally, Mordun activated the datapad the humans had left behind. The holographic display came to life, and images began to appear in the center of the chamber. The first image showed soldiers in strange uniforms fighting in a frozen city. Snow fell on broken buildings, while men with primitive weapons held impossible positions against overwhelming odds. What is this? Mordun asked, his voice uncertain for the first time. More images followed. Warriors with bronze weapons holding a narrow mountain pass against a vast army. Ships made of wood and steel charging into battles they couldn't win. Pilots in primitive aircraft diving at enemies 10 times their size. Counselor Wei Pan leaned forward on her platform. Unlike the others, she recognized what she was seeing. It's their history, she said quietly. It's what they do when someone tries to make them surrender. The holographic images continued to play in the council chamber. Battle after battle flashed before the alien observers. Each one showed the same thing, humans fighting against impossible odds, refusing to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. Counselor. Wei Pan watched her fellow council members as they stared at the display. She could see confusion in their body language. They didn't understand what they were looking at. These are primitive conflicts, Nalthis said dismissively. Ancient history. What relevance do they have to our current situation? The display changed to show a massive city under siege. Snow covered everything. People were starving, but they still fought. Buildings crumbled under bombardment, but defenders kept firing from the ruins. This is the siege of Leningrad, Wei Pan said quietly. The humans held that city for 900 days against an enemy that surrounded them completely. Over 1 million people died, but they never surrendered. Thexvar made a sound of irritation. Ancient history, as Nalthis said. These primitive wars have nothing to do with modern space combat. But Wei Pan had studied human history extensively. She knew things the other council members did not. Every single battle in this display shows humans doing the same thing. Fighting when they should surrender. Winning when they should lose. Surviving when they should die. The display shifted again. Now it showed a small fort in a desert surrounded by thousands of enemies. The defenders knew they were going to die, but they fought anyway. They fought until the last man fell. The Alamo, Weipan continued. They all died, every single defender, but their sacrifice inspired others to keep fighting. The larger war was won because these few chose to die rather than surrender. Morden's crystal form chimed with confusion. Why are you telling us this? What does any of this matter? Weipan turned her compound eyes toward him. Because you just gave these humans the same choice their ancestors faced at Leningrad, at the Alamo, at Thermopylae, at 100 other battlefields, surrender or die. And their ancestors chose neither. Their ancestors were primitives with simple weapons, Thexvar said. We have the combined fleets of 7 advanced civilizations. We have weapons that can crack planets. So did their enemies, Weipan replied. In every age, humans have faced superior forces, superior technology, superior numbers, and in every age, they found a way to turn disadvantage into advantage. The display was now showing something different. Instead of ancient battles, it showed more recent conflicts. Space stations under attack, small human ships fighting much larger alien vessels, colonies defending themselves against raiders. Look at their recent military history, Weipan said. Every battle follows the same pattern. They're outnumbered. They're outgunned. They win anyway. Nalthis spread her wings in annoyance. Those were minor conflicts against pirates and raiders, not organized military campaigns. The Kepler colony incident, Weipan continued, ignoring the interruption. 50,000 human colonists held off a Trilaxian raiding fleet of 200 ships. They had no military vessels. They used mining, equipment, and cargo haulers. They not only survived, they captured 12 enemy ships. The chamber was getting quieter now. Some of the alien observers were starting to pay closer attention to the holographic display. The New Geneva Station defense, Weipan went on. 3 human destroyers against a Vorthak pirate squadron of 20 ships. The humans were supposed to evacuate. Instead, they attacked. They destroyed or captured the entire enemy force. Thexvar's voice carried a note of irritation. Those were aberrations. Unusual circumstances? Were they? Weipan asked. Or is this simply what humans do when you corner them? The display had changed again. Now it showed something that made several council members lean forward in their seats. It was recent footage from human space, but not the kind they expected to see. Instead of the small, scattered colonies the council knew about, the images showed massive industrial complexes, shipyards building vessels of unknown design, research stations conducting experiments that made their sensors scream with warnings. Where did this footage come from? Morden demanded. Weipan's voice was very quiet. Our intelligence services have been watching human space for the past 50 years. What you see here is what we found when we looked carefully, really carefully. The display zoomed in on one of the shipyards. Hundreds of ships were under construction. They were sleek, fast-looking vessels unlike anything in the Council databases. Those aren't the simple colony ships and patrol craft we've been monitoring, Nalthis said, and for the first time, her voice carried a note of concern. No, Weipan agreed. They're not. And that industrial complex isn't on any of the worlds. We thought humans had settled. It's hidden in the asteroid belt of a system we marked as uninhabited. More images flashed by. Hidden bases, concealed research facilities, ships moving through space using drives that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. How long have they been building in secret? Thexvar asked. We estimate about 100 years, Weipan replied. Maybe longer. They've been preparing for this moment since they first encountered other galactic civilizations. The chamber erupted in alien sounds of shock and anger. How had they missed this? How had humanity hidden so much from the Council's surveillance? The datapad, Mordoon said suddenly. What else is on it? Weipan activated more of the device's contents. New images appeared. Star charts showing human expansion far beyond what the Council had detected. Technical specifications for weapons that shouldn't exist. Most disturbing of all, detailed intelligence reports on every Council race. They know everything about us, Nalthis whispered. Our fleet positions, our technology, our weaknesses. While we know almost nothing about them, Thexvar added grimly. The display shifted to show the most shocking revelation yet. Deep space monitoring stations reported massive energy signatures moving through hyperspace, signatures that could only come from a fleet, a very large fleet. When was this recorded? Mordoon asked. Weipan checked the timestamp. 6 hours ago, just after our ultimatum was delivered. The chamber fell silent. The implications were clear. Humanity hadn't been caught off guard by the Council's decision. They had been waiting for it, planning for it. Where is this fleet now? Thexvar demanded. Unknown, Weipan replied. They disappeared from our sensors 3 hours ago. Our best guess is that they're using some kind of cloaking technology we don't understand. New data scrolled across the display. Communication intercepts from human space, military codes being transmitted, colony worlds going to high alert, industrial facilities switching to wartime production. They're mobilizing, Nalthis said unnecessarily. The entire human civilization is going to war footing, Weipan confirmed. Every colony, every ship, every research facility. They're not planning to evacuate anything. They're planning to fight. More shocking revelations followed. The moon, orbiting Earth, wasn't natural. It was a massive, camouflaged fortress. The asteroid mining operations in human space weren't just mining rocks. They were building weapons. The primitive fusion drives on human ships could be modified to create weapons that would make stars go nova. How did we miss all of this? Thexvar's voice was barely controlled. Because they wanted us to miss it, Weipan replied. Every survey we conducted, they guided to the sites they wanted us to see. Every intelligence report we received came through channels they could monitor. They've been controlling what we know about them for decades. The final images on the display were the most disturbing of all. They showed human ships, not the small patrol craft the Council was familiar with, but massive vessels bristling with unknown weapons. Ships that moved through space in ways that defied known physics, and there were thousands of them. The fleet we detected 6 hours ago, Weipan said quietly. Our sensors couldn't get an accurate count before they vanished, but our best estimate is between 5,000 and 10,000 vessels. That's impossible, Mordoon protested. Humanity doesn't have the industrial capacity to build such a fleet. Apparently they do, Weipan replied. Hidden in systems we never bothered to survey carefully, built using technology we thought they didn't possess. The chamber was silent except for the soft sounds of alien breathing and the hum of machinery. The Council members stared at the display as the terrible truth sank in. They had just threatened a species that was far more dangerous than they had realized. A species that had been quietly preparing for this exact moment for over a century. A species that had just chosen the third option their ambassador had mentioned. Not surrender. Not Extinction. War. 3 days passed in tense silence after the humans walked out of the council chamber. The alien delegates remained on Nexus Prime, unsure what to do next. No species had ever simply ignored a council ultimatum before. The established procedures didn't cover this situation. Then the galaxy's communication networks exploded with activity. Admiral Choi Min's face appeared on every major frequency at exactly the same moment. He was a middle-aged human with gray hair and calm eyes. Behind him, the bridge of his ship hummed with quiet activity. Human crew members worked at stations filled with technology the Council had never seen before. To the Galactic Council and all who hear this message, Admiral Choi Min began, his voice carrying across hundreds of star systems. 3 days ago, you offered humanity a choice between submission and extinction. We rejected both options. In the Council chamber on Nexus Prime, the 7 Council members watched the broadcast with growing alarm. How were the humans transmitting on frequencies that required Council authorization? How were they overriding communication systems across the galaxy? Instead, Admiral Choi Min continued, humanity chooses independence. We choose to stand on our own feet, sail our own course, and face whatever comes with our eyes open and our weapons ready. The display behind him changed to show space filled with human ships. Not the small patrol craft the Council knew about, but massive vessels that moved in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed with armor that seemed to bend light. Around it, their weapons ports glowed with energy signatures that made sensors scream warnings. For over a century, Admiral Choi Min said, humanity has prepared for this moment. While you watched our small colonies and counted our few patrol ships, we built a true fleet in the spaces between stars. While you dismissed our technology as primitive, we developed weapons and defenses beyond your understanding. Counselor Thexvar tried to activate the emergency communication system to override the human broadcast. Nothing happened. The humans had somehow locked out the Council's own networks. We know what you're thinking, Admiral Choi Min continued, as if he could see into the Council chamber. You're thinking that no young race can stand against the combined might of 7 galactic powers. You're thinking about the Kitheric, who chose to fight and were destroyed. The display changed again. Now it showed the ruins of the Kitheric home system that the Council had used to threaten humanity. But there was something different about the image. Something the Council members hadn't noticed before. But the Kitheric made one crucial mistake, Admiral Choi Min said. They fought you where you were strong. They met your fleets in open battle. They tried to match your technology with their own. The image zoomed in on one section of the destroyed system. Hidden among the floating debris were structures that definitely hadn't been there when the Council surveyed the ruins. New construction. Recent activity. The Kitheric didn't choose extinction, Admiral Choi Min revealed. They chose to disappear, to fade into the dark spaces between stars and wait for their chance to return. And while they waited, they learned, they adapted, they prepared. Counselor Wei Pan leaned forward on her platform, her compound eyes reflecting the display light. She had suspected something like this for years, but could never prove it. The Kitheric taught us much during our century of secret cooperation, Admiral Choi Min continued. They taught us how to hide from Council sensors, how to build in the spaces you don't monitor, how to develop technology you wouldn't recognize. The display shifted to show human ships emerging from what looked like empty space. Cloaking fields dropped away to reveal entire fleets that had been invisible moments before. Ships equipped with weapons and shields based on technology that was both human and something else entirely. Together, we learned the most important lesson the galaxy has to offer, Admiral Choi Min said. The Council rules through fear and overwhelming force, but fear only works on those who have something left to lose, and overwhelming force means nothing if you can't find your enemy. In the Council chamber, Nalthis spread her wings in agitation. This is impossible. Our sensors would have detected Kithric survivors. We monitor every system in the galaxy. Wei Pan's voice was very quiet. Do we really? How many systems have we written off as empty because they're too dangerous, too remote, or too worthless to bother with? How many dark nebulae have we never surveyed because nothing could survive there? The broadcast continued. Admiral Choi Min's image was replaced by Captain Nam Jun, a younger human with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who had seen combat. As I speak, Captain Nam Jun announced, human fleets are moving through Council space using routes you cannot detect. We are not attacking your worlds or threatening your civilians. We are simply demonstrating that your borders are meaningless to us. New images appeared on the display. Human ships emerging from hyperspace near major Council military bases. Not attacking, just appearing long enough to be detected before vanishing again. The message was clear. We can go anywhere we want, anytime we want. Your fleets are impressive, Captain Nam Jun continued. Your weapons are powerful. Your technology is advanced. But all of that means nothing if you cannot find us to use it against us. The display changed to show something that made the Council members gasp in shock. It was the heavily fortified system that served as the Council's primary military headquarters, and floating just outside the defense perimeter was a single human ship broadcasting this very message. How did they get past our defenses? Mordun's voice chimed with panic. The same way they got past everything else, Wei Pan replied grimly. We built our defenses to stop the kinds of attacks we understand. We never prepared for an enemy that doesn't fight the way we expect. Captain Nam Jun's image faded, replaced by Dr. Yang Bo, an elderly human woman with kind eyes and a grandmother's smile. Her appearance was completely at odds with the devastating revelations she was about to share. The Council has always believed that young races are technologically inferior, Dr. Yang Bo said in a gentle voice. This belief is based on the assumption that all races develop technology in the same way, following the same paths. Behind her, the display showed complex mathematical equations that made some of the alien observers lean back in their seats. The mathematics were so advanced that several Council scientists would later admit they couldn't understand them at all. But humanity learned something different, Dr. Yang Bo continued. We learned that there are many paths to the same destination. While you perfected energy shields, we learned to build armor that bends space around it. While you developed faster-than-light drives, we learned to step outside normal space entirely. The equations on the display shifted and changed, showing calculations that seemed to violate several fundamental laws of physics. But the results were undeniable. Humans had found ways to do things that should be impossible. Your barrier technologies that keep young races trapped in their home systems? Dr. Yang Bo smiled sweetly. We solved those equations 70 years ago. We've been free to travel anywhere in the galaxy since before most of you knew we existed. The final speaker was someone the Council recognized, Park Hyun, the diplomat who had walked out of their chamber 3 days earlier. But he looked different now. The careful politeness was gone, replaced by something harder and more determined. The age of Council dominance is ending, Park Hyun announced. Not because we will destroy you, we're not conquerors, but because we will no longer allow you to rule through fear and intimidation. The display behind him showed star maps of the galaxy. Human settlements appeared in systems the Council had thought were empty. Trade routes linked human colonies across impossible distances. An entire civilization had grown in the spaces between Council territories. Other young races are watching this broadcast, Park Hyun continued. They're seeing that the Council's power is not absolute. They're learning that resistance is possible, that independence can be achieved. We cannot permit this, Thexvar said to his fellow council members. If the young races rebel, the entire galactic order will collapse. The galactic order built on oppression, Wei Pan corrected him. Maybe it's time for something better. Park Hyun's final words echoed through the chamber as the broadcast ended. The council offered us a choice between submission and extinction. We chose a third option. We chose freedom. And we invite every species in the galaxy to make the same choice. The communication networks went silent. The human ships that had appeared throughout Council space vanished as quickly as they had come. But the damage was done. Within hours, reports began coming in from across the galaxy. Young races were declaring independence from Council oversight. Trade agreements were being canceled. Military cooperation treaties were being withdrawn. The carefully maintained order that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was crumbling, and it had taken humanity exactly 3 days to bring it down. Not through conquest or destruction, but by proving that the Council's power was built on an illusion. The illusion that resistance was impossible. In the Council chamber, Wei Pan looked at her fellow members and saw the fear in their eyes. They had mocked humanity for being young and inexperienced. They had laughed at human claims of peaceful intentions.